Okay, my name is Christopher Meyer. I'm a family law attorney in the greater Houston area. This is the Chris Meyer Podcast. I have a guest today. Her name is Dr. Monica Borschel. She is a psychologist, and we are going to talk to her today a little bit about her background and some of her thoughts and insights on mental health issues and family violence. So, Monica, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
It's nice to see you, Mr. Meyer. It's always lovely to work with you. So, I am a registered psychologist in Hong Kong, a psychology associate in California, and a divorce and trauma recovery coach elsewhere.
Okay, great. I guess what drew you into this area?
So, I've always been really interested in psychology. And then when I did my PhD in Hong Kong, it was on grief and attachment. And then I was invited to take a family mediation course where I started interacting with more family lawyers and attorneys. And I could see how my research plus the trauma therapy that I do kind of fit really well into family law. Because, of course, there's loss, there's trauma, and there's relationship dynamics. So then I started to get more interested in the forensics part of family law.
Okay, when you say forensics, you mean like family violence or child interviews, forensic interviews of children?
Yes, custody evaluations, risk assessments, psychological evaluations, things like that.
Okay, I guess what is it? I guess what patterns would you see?
Patterns within,
Well, I
because
mean, with childhood trauma, I mean,
uh
maybe children are being exposed to abuse or neglect, or maybe one parent refuses to co-parent, or kind of uh, projecting blame onto the other parent, which is not uncommon, or
yes.
sometimes it's very legitimate issues too. But
Mhm.
and you have to kind of dig into these matters and kind of sift through what's fact or fiction or what's and then I guess overall, do you make recommendations or how does that work? Are you allowed to make recommendations?
If there's a court order, yes, then I make the recommendations. But no psychologist or therapist or anyone else in mental health should make the recommendations without that court order.
Of course, of course. Yeah, and it also protects you. But what impact would you say mental health issues, undiagnosed mental health issues, or untreated mental health issues can have on the family unit, or specifically children?
Yes. And it's quite complex, right? Because people don't always know they have a mental health issue, right? They might think, oh, I'm not sleeping well, I'm not coping well, I'm not eating well. I'm just going to blame stress. But it could be depression, anxiety, PTSD, complex trauma from their own childhood, unresolved grief, unresolved loss. And all of those things make it very difficult to parent. And when you're dealing with personality disorders, there's even less insight.
Tell me about the personality disorders. Are there like common personality disorders that would not necessarily go against someone's parenting ability? I mean, how does it work, or how does it, or so just tell me what you know about these personality disorders. I mean, how severe can it get, and is it? I mean, do a lot of people have it?
A lot of people do not have personality disorders, but by the time I get a case, it's the worst cases because most people can resolve a divorce quite easily. It's the select few where the judge says, I don't know what to do here. We need to involve a psychologist. And sometimes one of the things I forgot to mention is bipolar,
Oh,
right? And so when
uh,
people don't take their medication, when they refuse therapy. That's very challenging. But you have to be careful because when people get a divorce, they'll say, "Oh, he's a narcissist. She's borderline." We hear that a lot, and I'm sure you
What's
do
new?
as well. So, most people have some narcissistic traits, but what we're looking at is emotional regulation. And so, if someone is manic or paranoid or they're not emotionally regulated, then they might put their emotions on their children. And it can get really bad. It can get to the point where someone might say, I'm going to kill myself. Your other parent is out to get me, and the paranoia increases. Sometimes some people use the child as a therapist or as a support system, which leads to parentification, where now the child thinks they're responsible for their parents' emotions. They start to worry about finances, which they don't need to worry about. They worry about, if I'm with my dad, is mom okay? If I'm with mom, is dad okay? And those are all the things that we look for and want to avoid. And hopefully we can treat them if the parent is cooperative.
Where do you see parentification the most?
Parentification happens when a parent lacks insight, when they lack the insight to see how their behavior is affecting their child. And so they might use parentification as parental alienation, which I know is also a very controversial topic, right? I want to turn you against this other parent. I want you to favor me over them. So I might play victim, or I might not have the resources in my social network, the family network. I might not be able to regulate my own emotions enough. So I bring it to the child.
And what, I guess, what maybe the intent to harm the child is not there, but what impact would you say is on
So
the child?
then, so then children think they have to be a little adult. And now they're stressed. And now they can't sleep. And now they're not doing well in school. And they might feel like, if I go to dad's house and I'm nice to dad, how's that going to affect mom, or vice versa?
I was in family court a while back, and the judge was. I heard it was the judge was admonishing both parents. They had been fighting and just not zero co-parenting, but he said something interesting. He said, what if the child goes to dad's house and has a special experience, and then when the child goes to mom's house, not allowed to, child is afraid to share that special experience because it would trigger mom. And
Yes.
then simultaneously, the child has a special experience at mom's house, but when she goes to dad, she can't, or he or she can't share that warm experience, that good experience with the other parent because that's going to trigger them too. And it's just kind of puts the child in the middle. It's just not fair for the child. And no, I know exactly. Yeah, I unfortunately I have the misfortune, I guess, of getting to see the things like this, but it's unfortunate. What would you say the underlying issue is? Like mental health issue? Is it depression? Is it the deep sense of rejection, or is underneath these this rejection? Is it really just fear? Are we all afraid underneath? I mean, what causes? What is the underlying cause? What do you?
Yeah, and it could be different for everyone, right? Because some people are emotionally mature enough not to do that to their child. But when you start seeing that, you start to wonder, yeah, is it fear? Are you afraid your child will reject you, abandon you? Do you feel abandoned by the spouse that you're divorcing? Did you struggle with abandonment in your own childhood? How were you treated as a child? Are you parenting your child how you were parented and you think that's the correct way?
Do you see? I mean, do you see patterns from the? I don't know. I want to say the maybe the baby boomer generation, how they treated their children, or maybe what I don't know what they went through. Maybe their parents had PTSD from the World War. I don't know, and then they the baby boomers turned out a certain way, and then they treated the next generation a certain way. And do you feel there's finally more awareness of this issue, and we're finally pushing back?
Yeah, there is more awareness, and we can think podcasts like yours, social media, the internet. Yeah, I mean, I would say most of my clients are probably Gen X or Gen Z, right? They're the ones with the children of that age. And Gen X, even my trauma clients, because I also do trauma therapy, will say, oh, well, that's just how we were raised. Like it's normal to be spanked. It was normal to get your mouth washed out with soap. It was normal to be criticized. I don't see it as abuse. Everyone was treated that way.
I would when I have like protective order hearings because of domestic violence. I hear things. Um, I hear a lot of things, and sometimes abusers will say, "Well, that's just how I would. That's how I was raised. That is
Yes.
what my parents did to me,"
Yes.
and that's quite shocking for me because they're. I mean, it's intergenerational trauma. You're just kind of passing the trauma down to the next generation, which is not appropriate. We need to break that cycle, and I think if we were to peel back the onion even further, um, when we start getting into like neuroplasticity, just how neural pathways are, like this is just what we see as what is right and what is wrong. I mean, it's just these. I mean, what would you say that these? We're raised a certain way. We're socialized to believe certain things. We have these, paradigms that certain things are right, certain things are wrong. It is just the way our brains are wired. So what is the defect? What's the issue? Well, I mean, what can we fix to, I mean, or think about what can we think? How can we think differently to hopefully, rewire our brains so we don't see that causing trauma to the next generation is appropriate? I mean, is it just we need to have more? Is it just lack of empathy in the world? Is it wait? I mean, what can we do? What are we doing wrong?
Yes. So you make a good point. So they say neurons that fire together wire together. So as a child, let's say you grew up with high conflict family, noise. Now you're afraid of conflict. You don't feel safe. You don't trust people. You're afraid to date or go out there and meet people because you're afraid of marriage because what you saw or you were abused. So what's the opposite? I want to feel safe. How do I feel safe? Do I need trauma therapy? Do I need to find safe people? And so empathy is great. It would be wonderful if everyone was high empathy, but there's also issues with high empathy, right? Do I need to set boundaries around my high empathy so that if someone's playing victim, I don't get pulled in
Oh, I
or,
know all about that.
yeah, I don't.
I could turn into a pro bono lawyer very fast. It's called involuntary pro bono. Have to
Yes.
be.
And then for attorneys too, the emotional exhaustion that
Oh,
comes
yeah.
with working with clients, right? And so, how do you protect your empathy but still have empathy? How do you stay safe and find safe people? And how do you not harm your own children? Because it could be a reaction,
I have
right?
one word for that. I call it dissociation. That's the word I picked. Uh, I tell myself, I tell my employees, I want you to be empathetic. I want you to put yourself in someone else, the client's shoes and struggle with their reality. And I want you to do that until 5:30 p.m. And then
Yes.
about around a little bit after five, it's time to dissociate and be present for your own family. Because if you start bringing all that drama from work home, and that's going to turn into a slippery slope you'll never recover from. And I know a lot of other family law attorneys. For a lot of them, it's there's a lot of burnout. There's most people won't even like touch the stuff that I do, and that's why I'm also really happy to talk to you because it's actually really hard to find a child psychologist, somebody who's willing to interview children who have been through serious trauma. I mean, finding an expert witness in Houston. Houston's the fourth largest city in the country, and it's so hard to find an expert witness who's available. I mean, it's like I can't believe there's like somebody out there with more job security than me, you know. And because people contact me all the time when they're having a panic attack. But and I'm there's quite a few, we go on Google. There's quite a few family law attorneys everywhere, but finding a child psychologist who's willing to do a forensic interview for a child custody evaluate or for a custody dispute, that can be challenging. And I have a short amount of time, and I got to find somebody.
Hmm.
So no, the hats off. 100% respect for you, what you do, and I thank you for that. Now, please continue that work because you are few and far between. Thank you. And it's I guess get back on point. I did want to explore neuroplasticity a little bit more, and you mentioned neurons that fire together, wire together.
Hmm.
Is that would you say that's taking a more global approach to that? Is that more like a social issue? I mean, or where do you see trauma most? Is it what type of families do you see it in? Is it based on social status or I mean, just help me out here.
It's, I mean, in my work, it's not a social status thing,
Okay.
especially where I work in Hong Kong. Most of my clients are affluent, very affluent, in fact. And then here in California, where I'm a psychology associate, because I'm an associate, I'll take the lower end cases where people have less money.
Yeah.
Um, and so the affluent families might be more, how do I say, they might be act more emotionally regulated, but that's not what's happening behind closed doors. Um, I'm not sure if I answered all of your question, but I think the trauma I'm seeing a lot is the parentification, trying to turn the child against the other parent sometimes, but sometimes that abuse is very real. So, especially in sexual abuse cases, someone might say, oh, there's sexual abuse, and then the parent who's actually the abuser will say, oh, it's parental alienation. So sometimes the abuse is very real, and that's to your point, what you mentioned before. How do you know what's truth and how do you know what's fiction? So that's when we do the testing, we look at all the documents, we ask for CPS records, police records, we interview, because people can lie very well.
Oh,
And I'm sure you've encountered that as well. And we might think we're good at detecting lies. Sometimes yes, and sometimes not.
well, that's why I want to. I don't know if we have time today, but I really want to talk to you sometime, explore body language.
Mhm.
Um, I guess you have that special training on how to read body language. What I mean, just very briefly, what do you look for? I mean, if somebody is a great liar, I guess they know what to do, but most people don't. I mean, just what do you look for? What patterns do you look for? How can you how what is a red flag to you?
Superficial charm, where they come in and they just want to charm you,
Oh yeah,
wow you. They start bragging about things, or when they have the big crocodile tears, and then they look at you and they're like, "Is she buying this?" But as far
yeah.
as body language goes, everyone's a little bit different. So you look for stress responses, and then you ask yourself, "Is this stress response from stress?" Or is the stress response because they're not very good at lying?
Yeah, sometimes when I'm doing a consultation, I'll have my because I have glasses on. I don't see
Mm.
too terribly well without my glasses on, so I uh, have to pay attention to other things like what they're saying, verbal cues, nonverbal cues,
Yes.
how they're saying it, tone, inflection. And sometimes I have to. I'm writing things down on my legal pad. I'm taking notes, so I'm looking down on my legal pad, or I'm making a note on my laptop while I'm talking to someone, and I can't. It's hard to read the body language if I'm having to stare at my legal pad. So sometimes I'll have a paralegal sit in my office, and I kind of tell them, hey, look for micro expressions, you know, and then give me an assessment after they leave.
And micro
Sometimes,
expressions are very interesting because they only last less than a second.
yeah.
And it could be like a flash, it could be the smug smirk, it could be an upturn of the nose. Yeah, they're really interesting.
Well, what else do you look for when you're when you're okay, micro expressions? What micro expressions are important to you? And then what other things other than micro expressions do you feel are important other than just what they're saying?
So I look for the body language of someone who's truly been traumatized. And there's a lot of shame. When people are abused or traumatized, going back, I know you and I spoke off camera about the limbic system, but the limbic system is basically our fight or flight. It's how we survive. And when that's on, it's very difficult for people to think clearly. They cannot access their frontal lobe. And so if someone comes in and you used the word dissociated before, they look like they're in shock. They can't find their words. They start talking about their trauma and you see them hold their breath or put their head back like they want to avoid it or put their hands up in shame. Those are all things I look for because the other person might say they're lying. This is parental alienation when in fact the trauma is real. And so that goes back to what's real and what's not.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. I One thing that I like to look for is just kind of I take a look at watch the hands. Sometimes I'll have someone in my office. I'll have like a little something they can like a fidget with. Like I have these uh, little magnets on my desk that like something like you might buy at a natural science museum. Just those little rock magnets. And people come to me when they're very nervous about a family law issue, and they start
Yeah.
kind of fidgeting with the little rocks and stuff, things like that. So that's uh, important. Um, Also, well, okay. Example was hypothetically speaking, of course, I do CPS work or oh, hypothetically CPS work, and parents will tell you they're clean, they're not on drugs anymore. And for purposes of this conversation, we're going to just ignore the lab reports. Lab reports
Yeah.
will say they're testing positive, but for purposes of this conversation, we're going to take that out of the equation and just look at what they're saying and how they're saying it. And they're telling me they're clean, but they're looking down. Their body language is all over the place because fidgeting, hard, wants to sit still. It's everything in my system. I see so many red flags that not being truthful, and and then maybe more of a when I ask more pointed questions, I get kind of defensive answers. But that goes to what they're saying, but it's not necessarily what they're or how they're saying it. And these are all important things to me when I talk to people. For example, if I have a parent who's abusing alcohol, if I look carefully, you could one thing I do is are you familiar with that book or that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about how the not just look at what somebody or listen to what someone's saying, but also how they're saying it, and also look at the total person, and that can tell you a much larger story about them. But back to the alcohol abuse is, I mean, you can tell if, like just looking at someone like people who have been sober, they kind of have a more of a natural glow to themselves, whereas alcohol is a diuretic and it kind of pulls the moisture out of the skin, and you just don't really have that glow as much. So it's more like not just body language, but I kind of I just look at everything, and I feel that's important. It'll help give me an accurate assessment, but well, a question, but do you see any other like specific patterns when you talk to parents as opposed to children? And I guess what would you look for uh, with the parents, and also with the or what's the and also tell me about the body language of the children when you're maybe doing a forensic interview. And I do have some interesting insight on that, because I did have a case not too long ago where the body language of the child was actually very relevant. But what are things you just look for during like a custody evaluation?
And depending on the age of the child, right? So little children are different than preteens or teenagers. Little kids are not very good liars. They're
Yeah,
not good at lying at all. And so they'll just tell you, right? They might not know they're not supposed to say that. I'm usually very friendly and warm with children so that they open up and they feel safe. I try not to interrogate them. Um, but, if the child says exactly the same thing as the parent, they've been coached. And as far as body language goes, yes, they'll squirm or they'll look down, things like that. Children are not good liars.
yeah. So if a child is making eye contact and they're kind of swinging their legs, sitting down to swinging their legs and playing with toys, and they're telling, I mean, there's what is that called? Cognitive dissonance. That's where you're projecting a kind of a natural body language, but you're saying that something that's not false. That'd be very difficult for a child, right?
It would be very difficult for a child, yes. And that squirming could also be they feel stressed, they're shy, they're anxious, they have social anxiety, they have ADHD. And so that's why it's important to look at all the information you can, get as much as you can.
Is it have you seen situations where maybe a child is with their abuser and maybe act one way, their body language is one way because they know they're being watched, but when they're away from the abuser and you're just being approachable and you're being warm, they behave differently. Have you observed that perhaps?
Yeah, and going back to, the age of the child definitely
Oh yeah.
matters a lot. Most children, well, a lot of children, they still love their parent, even if their parent is misbehaving. So you look for, is this child shutting down in front of this parent? Are they withdrawing? Are they going forward and then pulling back, going back to attachment? How do they act with the other parent versus this parent? How do they act with their siblings? How do they act when they're alone? So you're always looking at those different baselines. But you can have a child who is being physically abused but still cling to that parent, or emotionally abused or verbally abused, because dad or mom is not always bad. And sometimes dad or mom is good and they have good memories. So they might want to gain favor with that parent. If I'm a better student, if I clean my room more, maybe my parent will love me more. And so there's all kinds of baselines and things you're looking for.
What would you say would be the main? primary mental health issues or concerns that our generation has that we need to be more aware of to protect the next generation?
For mental health?
Yeah, like you mentioned personality disorders, bipolar disorder, maybe PTSD or anxiety. I mean, just like what are these big things that we as parents today have? I guess our current generation of parents, uh, I don't know,
Oh,
was maybe lack of empathy, narcissism. I mean, what are we doing wrong that we should that we need to adjust so we can, I guess, protect the next generation so they're not.
mhm. So just in general, the general population, anxiety is like 30% of the population. Depression is 40%, depending on where you are. And most people our age in this current climate, financial climate, are stressed. Then you add a divorce on top of that. That's more stress. And with the divorce often comes financial pressure and being a single parent. So all of that stress adds up. And so what are you doing about it? Are you drinking too much? Then depression, anxiety goes up. Are you exercising? That's protective. And if we think about PTSD, that's really important. And the gender differences, I mean, there can be some gender differences sometimes. Men, they might, if they've been to war, they might go into fight mode. Women who might have been sexually assaulted, they might go more into freeze or fawn, which is people pleasing. And so the difference between PTSD and a personality disorder is a personality disorder might have a big reaction that looks like a toddler because at some point in their childhood, they didn't get what they needed emotionally. So they kind of got stunted at that age. Whereas someone with PTSD, they might have a big emotional reaction and feel shame. Like, oh my God, I did not mean to do that. I feel so bad. And so PTSD is much easier to treat and it is highly treatable. And a personality disorder, again, I don't want to say they're unhelpable or you can't help them. They can be helped. It's just, do they want to be helped? Do
Yeah.
they have insight as to the harm that they're causing? And personality disorders is not going to be as high in the general population as the anxiety, the depression, or even PTSD, which personally, I'm a trauma therapist, so I see a lot of PTSD. I think there's more PTSD out there than we recognize or that we know.
If you were to give a, let's do this. We talked about PTSD, what you said, depression,
Anxiety.
anxiety, and what'd you say, personality disorder? Okay. Apologize, but if you were to give like a, okay, someone with PTSD needs to learn how to better regulate their emotions. So if you were to give a 1 minute crash course, what would you tell them?
To decompress their nervous system as much as possible. Let's say someone with PTSD is wired really high because they're constantly scanning for threats, right? They have that hypervigilance going on. So they might be I'm talking about body language, they might be muscle armoring, right? They might be on guard, they might be looking around a lot. They need trauma therapy, but if they're not going to do that, what can they do to bring their whole entire nervous system down every single day? What can they do to remind themselves they're safe, safe people, the doors are locked, my wife or my husband has never harmed me? Who are safe people I can confide in? Do I need to do yoga? Do I need to go to the gym? Do I need to listen to music? Especially, and I think the biggest key is pay attention to your body. What's happening? Am I like this? Okay. What do I need to do? Do I need to breathe? How do I relax my whole body? Because my limbic system is wired to my vagus nerve, which goes through my whole body. And it's a loop. What do I need to tell my brain? that I'm safe? What do I need to do so my body feels safe?
So more like self-awareness, like be able to
Maybe
observe
body awareness. Yeah.
body aware. Okay, I like that, body awareness, not just self.
Okay.
Be able to they have to be able to maybe observe their PTSD from a distance and just understand, be mindful of and self-aware of that it exists, it's here, it's like blood pressure. There's really no cure for it. You just have to treat it. Okay, I like that. Okay, so that was PTSD. If you were to like a 60-second crash course on someone with depression, how would you help them? Or like, what
Yeah.
would you? You had 60 seconds to save the world from depression, and you had to
I'm
finish
going to
like
try
what?
and do this in 60 seconds because depression is very complex. It's the biology. Are my
Okay,
parents or people in my family depressed? What's going on in my environment? Do I hate my job? Am I stuck in a bad marriage? What are my negative thoughts? What am I saying negatively about myself? And it's comforting. Depression is comforting. It sounds weird, but it is. This is what I know. I feel safe with it. So if I practice self-compassion, which is offering myself some grace, it feels unnatural and weird, and I don't believe it. And now because I'm depressed, I'm not exercising. And because I'm depressed, I'm not functioning at work. And so, where and in what area are you going to break that cycle? Are you going to change the environment? Or is it biological? Is it your negative thoughts? Yeah, it's very complex.
okay, and okay, so you have 60 seconds to save the world from anxiety. What would you say if you had to give like the shortest crash course in the world, and it was everything's writing on it?
And so,
Anxiety.
anxiety comes with that hypervigilance as well. And so people tend to avoid what makes them anxious. And the more you avoid what makes you anxious, the bigger the anxiety gets.
Avoidance behaviors. Okay.
Yes, so try not to avoid what scares you, and maybe you need to do baby steps. Also, pay attention to your body. Do I need to breathe? Where's the anxiety? What is the anxiety? Right? Is it catastrophic thinking? Right? Is a lot of anxiety. The world's going to end. I'm going to lose my kids. I'm going to lose all the money. I'm going to lose everything. My life is over. That is catastrophic thinking. Be very cautious of that.
I agree. That's so remove the thing that is so that kind of goes into cognitive processing therapy, right? When you kind
Yeah.
of figure out what is the thing that's causing you this harm. It's like, okay,
Yes.
no, I like that. I like it. Okay. This is probably the most difficult question. You have 60 seconds to give a 60-second crash course on personality disorder, like how to help somebody. What would you say? How do you?
Mhm. Yeah, and there's different kinds of personality disorders. So narcissist, let's just go the two we hear the most. She's narcissist, she's borderline. Borderline means they basically don't have an emotional skin. So they're very sensitive and their reactions are too big. They need to emotionally regulate in every way. Um, a narcissist, truly a true narcissist, that's a challenging one because at first it's like, where are you trying to gain control? What's your motivation? Is it power? Is it money? And how can you gain those things without coercive control, without abuse? That's definitely the most challenging one.
I will have a comment on that.
Mm.
Sometimes people come to me for a protective order, like victims,
Oh, yeah.
and they show me like all these text messages and voicemails and emails and recordings, and it's all just for purposes of this conversation. I'm going to stay away from the physical and the sexual violence because that's more
Okay.
easier to prove. It's more
Yes.
black and white.
Mm-hmm.
You just go to call 911 and go to police, and you're good to go. But I'm going to kind of go into the gray area of power and
Mm-hmm.
control. But I have victims coming to me, and they're complaining about. they're being put down, made to feel bad about themselves, being called names, humiliated, made to feel guilty. Uh, the abuser is controlling what they do, who they see, who they talk to, what they read, where they go. Limiting their outside involvement, using children, not preventing them from getting or keeping jobs, things like that. I see all this evidence. Male privilege, treating someone like a servant, making all the big decisions, or threats, making and or carrying out threats to hurt someone. The Oh God, I would actually like to do a separate podcast if you'd like.
Yeah.
When the abuser threatens suicide, oh my God, I that
Yeah.
is
That's a
that's a
big
whole
one.
other. But yeah, it's. But when you look at all these things, and we're kind of getting into the Duluth model, the power and control wheel, it's all about power and control. And I think people who desire power and control are also the same people who are not capable of putting themselves in someone else's shoes, um, because that power and control is too important to them. They don't see the pain that they're causing. So I call them narcissists. A narcissist is someone who's not capable of empathy, can't put themselves in someone else's shoes, can't uh, look at a situation in the present without judgment. That to me, that's a narcissist. So okay, so I'm dealing with a narcissist, and maybe I'm filing a protective order against them, and now I got them on the run, big time. And sometimes they want to fight me, which is fine. I do that too. I mean, not physically, like through the legal system, but
Yeah.
one thing I notice is a lot of them is it's not everyone, but when you pull away that mask, that ego, that narcissistic ego, I see underneath, I see fear,
Yes. A lot of
anxiety.
fear.
There's
That's
it's
very
just
true.
the sub to me, in my opinion, it's the subsurface emotion is usually anxiety or fear, but the surface emotion, what the world gets to see, or what the victim gets to see, is the abuser, is the power and control, is the physical violence, or the emotional abuse, using children, or economic abuse, male privilege, coercion, threats, whatever. That's the surface emotion. That's what the victim gets to see. But underneath, um, it's that fear. But that's not for everybody. I've seen others. It's not really a fear. It's just a true desire to just have power and control over someone. They just get triggered when they don't have that, when they can't control someone. It's like they don't accept the fact that you can have a different opinion. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Have you seen these Facebook comments? Like, people cannot handle someone else having a different opinion. It says, but yeah, but what I do, I just do. I mean, what I deal with is more serious cases where it actually turns into a family law matter, sometimes it has to, the district attorney has to get involved, and when I have to appear, they usually win.
Yeah. I would imagine. I would
They
imagine.
don't they only take the airtight black and white cases.
Mhm. So, yeah, and you're right. And people think people with personality disorders don't suffer, they only cause harm. And again, it depends on the personality disorder. If we're talking about a narcissist, they suffer, they have anxiety, and they have a deep shame, which is why they wear that mask so that no one can see that shame.
Well, if you had give a crash course on unpacking the mind of a narcissist, what would you say? Unbundling all the like those complex emotions they have. Like, what observations would you say if you had to kind of dissect that and explain it to a group of people?
They
You
don't
see,
want to be seen for who they truly are because that is scary. Because of the shame, there's a deep void. And so they might see you, and you probably see this all the time. They might see, or they might be verbally abusive, but then they'll say the other person's verbally abusive. They project. So whatever defect I see, if I'm the narcissist, whatever defect I see in myself, I don't want to look at. It's going to make my shame bigger, and I'm going to crack. I'm going to project it onto that other person. And so the anxiety is people are going to see I'm not enough.
Oh, that's interesting. And I do see that the typical example I give to people when I'm talking about projection
Mm.
is the kind of the classic example of the girlfriend going through her boyfriend's cell phone looking for messages because she's convinced he's cheating on her, when
Yes.
in fact she's the one who's cheating. Just
Oh,
kind of,
yes.
I think, trying to use the, if she can confirm that he's doing it too, then it's okay,
Yeah.
and
And
they get frustrated because they can't find the evidence, and but the accusations are still there, and it's just a lot of drama. But uh, mm, it's not really, if it's just a like an intimate relationship, but there's no children involved, no marriage, and like I guess who cares. But if it's children are involved, it can get more serious because that can turn into a custody dispute if someone's always being accused. Like I've got guys and women too. They're always being accused of infidelity, but they're like, I just don't do that. I swear, I don't. And I believe their language is telling me, and also there's zero evidence.
yeah.
But it's the other person who's doing that. They're the ones. The other side's refusing to turn over their text messages during discovery. Things like that. Um, and then, well,
I think with children, this deep, I'm not good enough gets projected onto the child. So now the child feels I'm not good enough. And so it's a lot of criticism so that the child looks perfect, or the flip side of this child is perfect. Of course, it's perfect. It's my child, right? And so, either way, to your point, that intergenerational trauma is getting passed down, as are the narcissistic traits. So, if I'm perfect, here's my mask, and my child is perfect, then my child can do no wrong. That child doesn't develop the empathy. If I'm projecting this deep shame and I'm not good enough, so my child's not good enough. Now I'm criticizing my child. Maybe I'm not praising them enough. Maybe I'm humiliating them. Maybe I'm embarrassing them because maybe my parents did that to me.
I see that. I say this respectfully, with kindness
Mm.
and with empathy. But Houston is a big international city. A lot of first generation Americans here. A lot of families, parents they came from poverty from overseas. There's a reason they left the country they came from, and they worked there. And I'm not going to lie, they work very, very, very hard, and expect only excellence from their children. And they kind of project,
Yeah.
well, this is what the cross that I carried in life,
Hmm.
and I grew up with nothing, and you're going to do better. And kind of in a way, it's
Yes.
like shaming the child into, I guess, in other words, like tiger parenting, but with more baggage.
Yeah, and that can make children very anxious because it feels like, and to your point, it doesn't mean it is, they feel like love is conditional. I need to get perfect grades. I need to just, and again, like you said, this is with cultural sensitivity. Some of those parents, they think that if they criticize their child and highlight the weaknesses, that is what will make their child strong. And they see it as a very competitive world. So I'm not going to tell you what you're doing well because you are doing a lot of things well. So why would I pick on that? I'm going to pick on what you're not doing right so you can become even better.
I know you. Yeah, I'm not, without throwing anybody under the bus, but yeah,
Yeah.
I see. Sometimes I see other parents. They want their kids to only go to Ivy League schools,
Yes.
which is great. I
Yes.
mean, I'm happy if my son gets into an Ivy League, great. I'll be super happy for him. I'd love for him to go. It's fine, but I'm not going to put that expectation that he's only allowed to go to the only the best school in the world. I'm not going to put that pressure on him. But if he decides to go and he decides, I'm going to be very happy and supportive, but I'm not going to shame him for not accomplishing that. But and then there's another group of parents. They just know, go to school, get a practical education, something that you enjoy, that you can be good at, and do well for yourself, and you'll be fine. And
Yeah.
I think my I kind of have an in between position. Like my kids, I'll tell them, well, just go to school and get your diploma, get your license, whatever, and daddy will teach you marketing later, and you'll be fine. I mean,
There you
you
go.
can if you don't know how to market, you can be. I mean, there's other lawyers that are. I'm not going to lie, they are a lot smarter than me. They're very book smart, but uh, no disrespect, but they're horrible at marketing, and they just don't do well. And then there's or they say in law school, there's A students, B students, and C students. A students become professors, B students become judges, and C students become millionaires because they have those. Maybe they're not as book smart as the A students, but they have the kind of the social skills, if kind of natural marketing ability, so they end up doing better than others. And for the record, I wasn't a C student. I was kind of more in the B, so but not judge material. So
That's
I mean,
funny.
yeah, so
Yeah. And some people, and to your point, everyone's different. Some people have social skills and they can network and people love them. And so they get positions.
yeah, it's it. But I guess it could also be a mask too, because some of us have PTSD, depression, anxiety. It's
Yes.
I don't know. It's wow. Yeah, me personally, I was diagnosed with PTSD after my service in the military, so I know I think I'm in a good position to empathize with what people tell me they've been through trauma. I get it. It stays with you,
Yeah.
but it
It's
doesn't have to
challenging.
define you.
Exactly. And and so what are the things that you have found helpful to help you regulate your emotions, your body, your
Uh,
responses?
you want an honest answer?
Yeah.
I came home from Iraq. I had a lot of chronic pain because I'd been carrying the body armor for an
Oh yeah.
actually more than a year in Iraq. It was also years before deployment because I've been in the service for like 7 years and just always training and things. And all my discs in my back were horrible. And VA, if you let them, they'll give you all the medication you want. They'll over medicate you if you let them.
Hmm.
And I tell other veterans don't let them do that too. But I went to the V after Iraq. I was discharged. I was going to law school, and I went to the VA, and I think I was standing in the pharmacy line. I was
Hmm.
talking to this other veteran, much older than me, much old. He looked just like me. It was scary, but just older.
Yeah.
And he had served in Vietnam, and we're just chatting. And I said, well, what are you getting? And I think he was getting the same stuff I was getting, but this guy was like but he didn't seem like an alcoholic or an addict or anything. He was, uh, but yeah, he was like getting the same thing for like some chronic pain he had from Vietnam. But this guy was. You could tell from his body language, he was just not capable of anything other than small talk. Like complex reasoning just wasn't there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be me. This is going to be me in
Mm.
30, 40 years if I'm not careful. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I'd rather be in a little bit of pain than lose capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh,
And then,
totally.
yeah, so I was like, no, I'm just gonna suck it up and do yoga and all that. And I mean, I could have gone to the VA and got, and I know that you probably hear a lot of complaints from veterans that the VA doesn't help veterans. That's actually BS. If you just go and you ask, they will help you, but you have to ask. So I mean, it could be everything I ever asked for, but I decided, I don't want that. I don't want. I mean, if I needed anytime I needed help or anything, I was always reach out, and they were always there for me and gave me what I needed, got me, in a good place where I could go to school, and get my education benefits and other compensation, things like that, and healthcare. So it was. I think I had a good experience with the VA, and all they gave me all the therapy I needed for the PTSD, and I was very grateful for that. I think a lot of hard work. I think the thing was I had some friends in Iraq, my battle buddies. probably about within after 2 years, 2 years after Iraq, they had committed suicide.
Mm.
And about also with me, about 2 years after Iraq, I was also struggling too. But the difference between me and them was I reached out and I talked to the VA, and they gave me unlocked all the resources I needed. My battle buddies who did sad things like commit suicide, they didn't reach out. So you have to ask. You know that was another big thing to me is you have to ask for help. When I was in school, there was a time when my first semester in law school, it was very stressful for me, and I was probably going to flunk out. I probably was. And then I asked for help and got some accommodations, and the, everything was fine. I just had to ask for it. It really wasn't a big deal. Just ask for it. And the school was accommodating, and after that, everything went great. Um, I also um, avoid drugs and alcohol. Before Iraq, shortly after Iraq, I kind of came to the realization alcohol was not actually my friend.
Yeah.
So I completely went sober 100%. I think that was a big difference. And then I found yeah, yoga, meditation, EMDR. I think all these are great things. And
Yeah. I agree.
self-awareness, But yeah, when I talk to other folks, um, I think when slowly became better and better at reading body language, I realized everyone else also has their own trauma, and
Hmm.
it made me much better at connecting. You know,
Yeah.
like yeah, I'm not the only person in the world who has trauma, and actually, I think most people. Yeah, it was just I think it's like I see other folks, other people, most people I see, they've been through their own trauma. They came to that realization and just became better at finding common ground with others and talking to them. And I'm also a court appointed CPS attorney, and I had my own experience in foster care, but yeah, I just talk to other professionals and kind of tell about my own experience. And I think people I deal with at work, at the courthouse, uh, they see trauma every day. A lot of people have been through their own trauma, so I think it's just easier to find common ground with others and build trust. Be open about it. There's no point lying because if you're um, if you're raw, if you're real, people, it's easier for people to to trust you. Does that make sense?
It
So there's just
does.
little insights I discovered over time, but it's a lot of little things.
Hmm. Yes.
Um, but I think the also realizing I think we're not really born with empathy. I think it's just something you have to learn. And there's a lot of things in life that make it difficult to be empathetic, but we have to kind of over learn how to overcome that. Um, like for example, I'm a Christian, but I sometimes I have like Muslim men come to my office. They hear good things about me. They come to me. They hear like I'm the guy to go to, and also Muslim women too. But I can tell from the body language. Somebody comes to me on the worst day of their life. They think they're being judged, and that's not true. I'm not judgmental, and um, just talk to them and let them know it's okay. I could see why somebody from another country, another religion, would feel isolated, and maybe they were led to believe that they're not important or they're not valued or somehow excluded or not part of the club. And I try when I talk to folks, I try to remove that and like no, it's okay. You're gonna be fine. I'm gonna take care of you. And don't worry, everything all the threats you received from your wife and her family. I know they're just threats that not they can't actually do those things. And it's not just from the wife's family; it's also sometimes from the
Yeah.
husband's family too. It cuts both ways. But I think that gave me very deep insight in what others are struggling with. And I mean, I've been invited to speak at mosques and things like that, and that was very special for me because I think people when they see me and they talk to me, they know I'm not I'm not maybe they just tell from my own body language that I truly I'm not judgmental of what they're going through, and I understand and I know how they feel, and I can see that they're struggling and they're scared, and I don't take advantage of that, you know.
Yeah, so you become the safe person, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about, finding safe people if you've been abused or through trauma. Yeah. And you also mentioned EMDR, which is fantastic. And I'm so
I
glad
love that.
you did that.
Yeah, maybe if we could talk about that sometime. And I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
EMDR.
Yeah, me too.
It's the like when you open up your computer and to go into DOS mode. It's like opening up the DOS mode of the human brain. You can really just open up the DOS mode. And you can really just rapidly start rewiring things. But oh my god, I could go on for hours on that. But I don't know if
Yeah.
we can do that today. But are you if you want, yeah, let's talk about EMDR sometime. I think
Okay.
that's also yeah. Oh my god, I don't want to. Don't get me started right now. We could go on forever.
There's so
But
many things we could talk about, actually.
no. I want to. Yeah, I want to talk about EMDR with you. I really do. Oh my god. I want to learn everything I possibly can from you about it, and I also got a few things I'd like to share too. So,
Yeah, definitely. That would be great.
all right, cool. Oh well, it's been over an hour. But hey, Monica, if you don't mind, I think we're good for today. Thank you for talking. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's always nice to see you. And thank you for being a safe person and an
Oh
open
yeah,
person. It's wonderful.
no, that's good. And always great to learn about you and the great things you do. And big fan of your work. And continue to help children. You know, keep children safe. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you
Uh,
so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.